I'm Ian Delamore, and this is Digital and Dirt. All right, welcome back, guys. My next guest, this is exciting. Before we jump in, Gordon McKernan, who's a huge advertiser in the out-of-home space, lent us his garage.
This is an amazing space.
Yeah, and my next guest has never been to Baton Rouge before, so what better way to start this podcast? But let me rattle off a couple of fun facts about you. She played in the #1 singles slot in tennis in high school. She comes from a family of influencers, and she is such an amazing woman that she doesn't have a third fun fact. My good friend, CMO of the OAAA, Olivia Oshry. Good to see you.
Hi, Ian. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I probably do have a third fun fact.
I know you do.
But it's so hard to think about yourself,
It is, yeah.
And what makes me interesting. And I also saw that you've had a lot of great guests on who have a lot of really interesting fun facts. So I was just like, let me just stay away from this.
Yeah, we were talking about that before we recorded, but I feel like half of them are probably made up. And I'm not going to lie, if I was on a podcast and I was asked to what's your fun facts, I'd rattle off 3 that were completely false.
You know what's so funny? It would never occur to me to lie.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't. But yeah. I love that 100%. Make yourself more interesting. But yeah. I wouldn't. It's almost like 2 truths and a lie. Maybe you should do that instead of 3 fun facts.
That's I love that.
Yeah.
Do you want to do one right now?
No, because you're putting me on the spot again to think about things that are maybe interesting about me or not.
Well, on the drive over here, we were talking about different podcasts that we listened to.
Yes.
And obviously you had your own podcast during the pandemic. I listened to a few of them. But then you asked me, because I said I listened to this military strategist, because he does a blend between military and technology. And you were like, oh, you were in the military? And I was like, oh, maybe I look like I was a Marine.
You do. I don't know why. You're just giving that vibe, And I personally don't feel like I look like I was in the military.
You give the vibe of maybe you own some huge fashion company and you just you boss people around. That's in the most positive way.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's dive into your career before where we are today. You spent 7+ years at the transformation of AOL, Yahoo, Verizon. Let's start there.
So I went to college at NYU, and I think one of the great things about going to NYU for college is that people call it a post-college experience.
Sure.
And pretty much everybody who's there knows what they want to be when they grow up, and I just was not having that experience. I grew up in New York City, so I was like, let me just go to college close to home, and this is a good school, and I know a bunch of people here, so this will be fun. But it's really hard being around a lot of people who are so hyper-fixated on how they're going to get to the next level.
Yeah.
You're in the Stern School of Business because you want to study business. You're in Tisch because you want to do acting. And then there's me, just in the general studies program, just trying to figure it out. And so I wound up falling into a history major, mostly because a lot of my credits just sort of lent itself to that being an easy path for me, which gave me the opportunity to really sort of explore other things that I might be interested in. And that really is a great part about being at NYU. I had probably 7 different internships. Yep. I interned at a fashion company. I interned at a real estate company. Okay. And my last internship was actually at AOL. And the AOL building was literally on the NYU campus, 770 Broadway. It's right there in Washington Square. I used to walk by it every single day. And funny enough, I started as the branded entertainment intern, and I'm pretty sure that I only got the job because at the time they were doing these branded content series, which is just so funny. This is 2012 thinking about what they were doing then and how it's so similar to what people are doing now, but it was so new age then.
Right.
But they were making video content that was sponsored by said advertiser in a specific vertical or category, with a celebrity or influencer. Talk about we're doing the same stuff now, right?
Repeat, yeah.
But it was GMC, the trucks. And they were working with Curtis Stone. It was all home DIY cooking, etc.
Okay.
And
I don't see this, by the way.
What?
I don't see this connection between you and
here. No, but the real connection is apparently the person in the interview before me thought it was GNC and thought it was a vitamin shop. And I was like, oh, GMC, it was only because I sort of knew the brand and maybe did a modicum of research. They were like, oh, you could have the internship, no qualifications, no whatnot. But actually, at the same time, I had been taking the LSAT. I took the LSAT twice. I really thought I was going to go to law school. That's a normal sort of track from history. And I got the same score on the LSAT twice. And I sort of saw that as a sign oh, you're not improving. This isn't for you. And people also said, take some time off and have some work experience before you actually go back to school. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm interning at a publicly traded company, like, is that considered work experience? And I have to tell you, like, from the very first day that I got there, I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. Like, I'm meant to be in advertising, in marketing, in media. Obviously, it was very much a digital media focus at the time, which most of my career was until I came to the OAAA. But it's like the second that I stepped into that building, I was like, oh, this is where I'm going to end up. And I just spent that whole year that I was there, like, wriggling my way into a full-time offer. And I actually graduated without a full-time offer.
Oh, wow.
And they were just like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And I didn't care. I was like, I am going to fucking work
We're going to
here.
do this, yeah.
And then like in July, so like 2 months later, like they finally...
Were your parents like, hey...
No, because they were paying me. I was getting paid really well as like a full-time intern. And I was still there like, 40 hours a week. But the full-time offer itself didn't come through until July. And I just like, I stuck it out because I was like, this is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah. I always enjoy whenever people just fall into something and they're like, this is where like my own personal story, like always my whole life loved baseball. Like it was my favorite thing in the world, and ended up interning at a major league baseball team, then cool. a minor league baseball team. And you felt that like passion. And there's so many people, like, unfortunately, Olivia, that are like, they'll start a job and they're like, God, I hate this. I hate everything about not just this company, but this idea.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy whenever people fall into like, this is where I was meant to be.
Yeah. Well, and it was also a really exciting time to be in digital media in 2012. Sure. I sometimes say a lot that like some of the synergies that like I saw then is sort of what I'm seeing now in the out of home space, just in terms of like the transformation, the innovation, like a lot of the digitization. Obviously I had started at AOL before I think Instagram was launching or had just launched, like when we were talking about distributing across social, like we're talking about Facebook,
right.
We're talking about like Dig and Reddit, like we're talking about things that like, obviously some of these platforms have had a little bit of a trajectory or full circle moment, but there was no TikTok there, and so, everybody had their own video player before like people started, just indicating on YouTube. So it really was a very different time in digital media, right. But I loved all of it. And I've always been a very brand centric and like marketing centric person. I've always just like loved brand. I love big ads. So it really was like a natural fit. I also do think I probably would have been a good lawyer too, but the LSAT said otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes tests lie. But
I'm not a good standardized test taker. That could have been my third fun fact.
Oh, there you go.
I feel like when you're good at standardized testing, you're really good at thinking inside the box.
Yes.
And I feel like I was the type of person that for every answer on a standardized test, I could have given you an answer of like why the others were right.
Well, and I teetered with the idea of going back and getting my MBA because I was like, okay, everyone that becomes an executive has an MBA, like, and a handful of people within Lamar were like, hey, don't do that. That will literally stifle the way that your mind thinks, which our minds are very much alike, where it's just like, okay, you tell me you can't do this, but let's push it anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting time for you at AOL because it was the infancy. When you talk about Instagram just launching, I remember it was very much just, there was a hand-selected number of advertisers that were allowed to be in.
Yeah.
And I think Lexus may have been one of the first 10.
Yeah.
But so touch on that a little bit more, like working for a publicly traded company that internally that have been so successful, but was still reinventing itself. And I would argue it was probably one of the first few tech companies that truly started to see innovation and change on top of them initially being like,
yes,
AOL, you got mail, which was innovative in its own mind.
Yeah, I think one of the things that they did really well at AOL, I obviously attribute a lot of this to Tim Armstrong, who was the CEO then, and then I went to go work for Tim after. So, my claim to fame before coming to the OAAA was I had never worked for anybody except for Tim Armstrong.
Not a bad person.
No, not at all. Yeah. But, there was we sort of called it like culture and code. There was a focus on the content, and obviously we owned like Huffington Post and TechCrunch and Engadget and all these amazing premium publishers. And then there was a really like deep commitment to building out like the ad tech stack and having both of those things, not just one or the other. I think, there were times sort of in the mid 2010s where we were trying to position AOL as like the third force against Google and Facebook. And we were clawing our way there. And there was really a ton, especially on the programmatic side, a lot of innovation in those early days. And also a lot of like fake it till you make it, just sort of, almost like manifesting it and testing a lot of different things. We acquired a lot of different companies. So that's why I say it was a really exciting time to be there because, coming off of like the world's worst merger, like you can only go up. So like that's a lot of what was going on there was just, it was a publicly traded company that very much had a startup mentality. Like people were grinding, people were really excited to like be there. The company culture was fantastic. And I remember the first quarter being there where we were profitable, and it was like, probably like Mardi Gras, like it was fantastic.
Everyone was partying.
Yeah.
Well, and mutual friend David Shingy.
Yeah.
Was he there during that time as well?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
So Shingy is like my number one. We could have this whole podcast just talking about Shingy.
We had Shingy, and for our listeners,
Did you?
highly recommend going back and listen to that podcast, because
Yes.
you've introduced Shingy to me, and him and I have like blossomed this friendship.
That
so
makes
shout
me
out to you, Shingy.
so happy.
Yeah.
Shingy is like the number one mentor in my life.
Okay.
He is seriously like the world's best person. And I say that because I think a lot of times, people see somebody like Shingy who is so accomplished, so well-traveled, like he is all over the world, so creative. But what people forget is like, he's also just the best human. Like he never forgets to just like text me like, how are you? What can I do for you? Yes. Like, I don't even do that shit for him, he's just so thoughtful. And I know he's that way with so many people in his life. It just really goes to the core and the essence of the human that he is. And he has taught me so much. So we used to do a video series at AOL called Shinger Views.
Oh, wow.
He had his own, it was like pre-podcast almost. And we went to Cannes, and we went to South by, and we went to like places like Seattle Interactive Conference, and we would just set up shop almost like this. Yep. We either would set up shop actually, or would be like on the move with like a full crew, interviewing like, everybody from like David Sable to Wendy Clark when she was at Coca-Cola, like the most amazing content ever. And I was like so blessed to be like that person. Like I've traveled the world with Shingy, and he's really just a phenomenal person, a phenomenal mentor. And I'm so glad you had him on your show.
Yeah. I subscribed to his Substack. He texts me from time to time, and now he's living his best life down in Costa Rica.
No, he's in Mexico.
Mexico now.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
no, it's amazing.
I think so. As it relates to that, like finding yourself, because a lot of bit about this podcast is people's journeys, but also what I find oftentimes is the people that are the most successful is they surround themselves and open up to and find these Shingys, internal influencers that truly like inspire you. Because it's one thing for someone that has your mindset and your mentality, like you probably felt day one, like, okay, one day I'm going to be something extremely important within this company in some measure. But to find that person that believes in you as well, boosts that confidence, but just gives you those little small opportunities. Touch on that a bit and the importance of that. Not just Shingy, but anyone that's influential in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's two things. I think one, you have to really be like open to feedback, and you have to realize that like feedback really is a gift. Now, I also think that like the feedback needs to be delivered in like a moderately constructive way. But Shingy has always been somebody that has like, said things very like real to me, and I really heard it. And if you listen, like you can grow, because you have to be somebody that's sort of like open to growing, open to criticism or feedback, not even negative, but just more like this person's lived more life experience than you and has seen more stuff. Like, again, I was straight out of college, like just navigating the corporate world. Like I knew that I didn't know shit, I think the other thing is like, you just have to like work hard, I remember there were so many things, like when I was an intern at AOL, like they prided themselves on the fact that like nobody's internship was like get coffee or get lunch. But actually, like that was very much what my internship was like. I was like one of the only, and they would say everybody but Olivia. And like, I didn't care. Do you know what I mean? Like you just have to do what you have to do, like whether it's the smallest job or the biggest task. Like I remember we had our first new front or like a first or second new front. And like Ariana Huffington needed a straw for her coffee because she didn't want to like ruin her lipstick. And I was like, okay, I'll go get the straw. And they were like, really? I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, like I'll go get the straw. Like it's not a big deal, and it's like, and people are like, don't want to do that stuff. And I'm like, it's just silly to me. So I think you have to be like open to like doing the work that you probably don't want to do or working really hard. And then two, being open to feedback so that you can grow as a person, because like you're going to come into these environments and like you're straight up not going to know anything.
Yep. The person that's maybe on set when you're going to grab that straw, guess what? Nothing's been beneath Olivia. Let's see what else. And I promise you, and I teach young people, because I'm old now, I teach young people all the time. Yeah. I'm old enough to say like back in the day, but it gives you that mindset of like, okay, well, that nothing's beneath them, but more importantly, like they want the challenge. They want the next thing.
Yeah.
And in your role now, that's who you want to go hire, the person that's going to run through the wall.
I also still feel in my role now like nothing is beneath me.
Oh,
like
without a doubt.
I don't believe in that shit, you know? Because I think every little thing sort of, it's like the sum of the parts, right? Mm-hmm. Like in some aspects of it are, you know, obviously not the sexy, cool, exciting stuff, but like gotta get done, you know? And I do think that everybody's job, especially in the corporate world, is to just make like somebody else's job a little bit easier. Whether that's like the marketers or the clients that you have or consumers, right? Like easy message to read, you know, like every single thing should be about ease for somebody else. Like that's all about like how we sort of pass it along.
Yeah. So fast forward. So you spent 7 years, AOL, Verizon, Yahoo, accumulated a ridiculous amount of insights and information. I love the fact that you were internally just innovating within the company. Speaking of sexy, you jump into the out-of-home industry.
Yeah.
So tell us why.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm a massive fan. I've been 20 years of my career in it, so I think it is sexy. I do think it's innovative. But from someone that's come from digital, had an amazing boss, all of a sudden you have this opportunity. Talk about how it was presented and your first initial thought. Like,
well, would you be shocked to know that Shingy is at the center of my story or no?
No,
of course.
I mean, this is the Shingy 2.0 podcast.
So when I left AOL, Tim Armstrong, like he was like, I'm starting something new. Like, would you like to come join? And I'm like, sure.
Yep.
And so we, you know, it was 5 years at this amazing startup called Flowcode, which started out as something very different. Yep. It was really just going to be around like how to help really DTC brands like scale offline.
Sure.
So you can sort of start to see some of that out of home messaging or sort of journey and how I got here. But the way that we were going to do that was to help them put QR codes on all offline media, TV, print, and out of home. But then the pandemic hit and our QR platform like took off because of restaurants and contactless everything. So we sort of got really deep in the QR space, but still with that same mentality of how do you, you know, sort of make offline media interactable. Is that a word? Interactive.
It's yours.
So actually, I did a good amount of out-of-home when I was at Flowcode, working with out-of-home partners, many of which I work with today, and putting, you know, QR codes all over the subway and, you know, on amazing like signage all over big cities. And, you know, also did a ton of TV, also did a ton of print. You know, I sort of had started moving my career from the digital space to sort of, you know, offline media space, but with that mindset of like, how do you make these things connected?
Right.
And so when it came to this opportunity at the OAAA, it was Shingy actually that called me. And Shingy was like, you want to go work for Anna? And I have known Anna for a really long time because when I was at AOL, one of the many jobs that I had there was really doing a lot of industry relations and working with the trade associations and doing all the B2B events. I built a speaker bureau there, like very deep in sort of the partnership marketing realm. So I knew Anna from her time at the IAB, and I'm, you know, coming off of working for such a strong leader, like to me, leadership is really important. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll go work for Anna, like 100%. And then I had known, you know, a little bit about out of home just because of some of the stuff that I've done, but not enough. But the things that I saw were like, one, growth, you know, one of the only segments of media still growing. Two, as mentioned earlier, like I've always been a brand person, like, and I grew up in New York City, like I'm like Times Square, like 100%. So it's sort of been around me my whole life, and I love it. Like I truly love the medium, and I do always say that I am like somewhat glad that I wasn't here during the pandemic because I can imagine that was like a difficult time. But I am so happy to be even in the very smallest part of the resurgence. So you know, it was like a no-brainer for me. All these things sort of came together and just like made a lot of sense. And I think if you love marketing the way that I always have, like how could you not love out of home and how could you not want to be a part of it? Yeah.
And you have such a phenomenal brand mindset that I think that's often what's lost right now. And I'm not knocking digital media. I think digital media is like extremely important, but for a brand to stand out now, it's so interesting because, you know, coming from New York or even in Baton Rouge or Kansas City, wherever you may be, you know, I had this conversation with a huge CPG brand a couple of months back, and they were like, man, I saw one of my competitors, they must spend, you know, billions of dollars with you. And I'm like, no, they just bought 5 billboards in Kansas City and Dallas.
Yeah.
And so my point is in this world of digital where we're constantly scrolling as consumers, and we were talking earlier about like the anti-algorithm, it's like, how do you emerge from that as a brand? Not even just challenger brands, but brands themselves. I feel like if we're not careful as consumers and marketers and advertisers, like brands can be lost because it's like there's no brand. So for you being an outsider in, you had to get extremely excited. I like to say it's like a blank canvas that you get to do whatever you want with in the people space and throughout people's daily lives.
Yeah.
And such an interruptible and like non-taxable way. It's just kind of like organically a part of your day.
Yeah. You know what's so funny? Is that like with out of home, actually on the digital side, like I really struggled with like the way people were moving to like ugly ads and how ugly ads work. That I don't vibe with that, and I do feel like there's a lot of times, especially digitally. And listen, like I come from a digital background, like I love social media, like I see the power of it. I'm not knocking it in any way, but I also think that like you can put in the bare minimum and like, sometimes something hits and that's awesome. But like to me, as somebody that does care so deeply about brand, like I hope in like some of the things that people see in terms of what we've done at the OAAA that like just at a bare minimum, like everything looks different. Like I just want it to give like a creative refresh. Like I deeply care about the way that things look. I have like maniacal, I try to be about like typos and things. And I just felt like so many brands were just like throwing whatever at the wall and they're like, something's gonna stick. And I don't know, I just like, I don't really vibe with that. I also think, as human beings, like people really want to be like visually pleased and entertained. And I think like that's why people care so much about like the Super Bowl and those ads. And so I love that like out of home is a place where it's like the more creative you are, like the more respected, the better it performs, the more eyeballs on it, the more people are going to share it socially, and just like really getting back to that like creative spirit. Like you cannot phone it in with out of home.
No.
And I love that about the medium because you really can phone it in online, whether you're doing organic social or paid social. Like a lot of people just like get on screen like with their hair a mess and like, and good for them. Like honestly, like no shade. But also I think there's sort of this like craft of marketing and advertising, like the Mad Men days. And I do think that there's like an element of out of home that really respects that. And I respect that. And I just fucking love that about the medium.
Well, and you drive past a billboard or you're walking through the subway and you're like, take our advertising hats off and our out of home hats off. You're like, damn, that's phenomenal creative. You made a comment earlier today. You were speaking to one of our groups back at corporate and you made the comment and I was like, I wrote it down.
What'd I say?
You said it may be that it's an intimidating medium from a creative standpoint because you can't hide from it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the power of out of home, is the ability where you are like, you're exposed.
You're exposed.
In a positive way. But also when you said it, I was like, I could imagine in some briefs, some brands may be kind of like, hesitant.
Well, you know what the funny thing is, thinking to your other question before also, is that yes, I grew up in New York City. I spent like 30 plus years of my life there. Like, it is sort of the mecca for out of home, but especially from a big brand perspective. But, I do live in South Florida now, and I've lived there for the past 5-ish years. And it's like a totally different out of home world. And I do a lot of driving. And I am like obsessed with like looking at the world around me. And I am obsessed with seeing like the local brands and like how creative they're being. Like I even like when we're in the car with my kids, I'm like, that's what mommy does for work. And they're like, well, what do you do? I'm like, okay, I'm not going into this right now. I'm like, what a trade association does.
My kids think I own Lamar Advertising. So.
Love that for you.
Not anymore.
But it's just like, I'm so captivated by it. And then I realized like I always have been, but now it's just ever so heightened because it is like my day every single day. So yes, but you can't hide from the medium. I think it really also, it makes you really focused in terms of how you're going to articulate your brand and your brand value or your campaign. Like, and I do think a lot of times people really struggle with that. And on social, like no shade to social again, but like you can throw a million things, like a million A/B test this creative. Is this going to land? It's like, and at the end of the day, it's like there's so many different types of audiences, and also is this stuff real? Like you don't even really know what's going on. But like when you put your brand out there in the world, it's like you're being judged. And I honestly think that a lot of times it resonates so positively because like you are showing up in places where people genuinely want to experience you.
Yeah, and we talked about it a good bit. It's the creativity side of it becomes even more important. But back to your point about our love and hate for digital media, like even more now than ever, like you can emerge as a brand utilizing out of home. And then intuitively, what we all do as consumers, if I see a billboard, I immediately go to Instagram. Now, side note, I also go to chat.
Yeah.
But there's that continued conversation, that story behind it. So I want to dive in the back half of the podcast, and the OAAA, on your behalf and a handful of other members, we launched the human medium.
Yep.
So the out of home as a human medium. And there were so many, 20 years in the industry, I've seen so many different like repositioning.
Yeah.
And it always felt like it was like, how do we make more money? And I'll be honest with you, kudos to you and the team. This is the first one that feels truly authentic, to where you feel comfortable to be able to go to a brand or an agency and truly say like, hey guys, we're the human medium. And then it's like, well, what do you mean? And it's like, well, what do we do all day? We find ourselves scrolling. You're like, God, I've been doing this for 30 minutes. You're making TikToks, you're watching YouTube. Although that's human in a sense, but out of home just truly feels. So I feel like the way that you guys repositioned, it's the first time, in my opinion, and not to knock previous staff, administration, et cetera, but it truly feels like, oh, this is a breath of fresh air. This feels like it's meant to be, and it truly is what we are.
Yeah, I think, first of all, thank you for saying that. It was obviously like a nearly 2-year endeavor.
Yeah.
And I would say there were so many different learnings that came out of it in terms of like what we needed to get to. And I think previous positionings or repositionings have been fantastic. I've seen them more so be industry campaign launches than a foundational like messaging platform. And that was sort of where we wanted to flip it, because we can launch an industry campaign all day long, but like with any campaign, it sort of lives and dies. Right. And that is sort of how I felt some of these other positioning work had gone, where it's like, every 5 to 7 years, we as an industry were positioning ourselves because we were basically just launching an industry campaign and then waiting a couple of years to launch the next one. And so what I really wanted us to focus on was like, how do we build a brand platform for out of home that like, no matter what happens in the advertising industry, like we could continue to evolve our messaging. I don't want in another 5 years from now to be like, okay, time for another positioning. Like I want this to be a living, breathing document that evolves as the industry evolves. And so, we did a ton of research where the biggest thing that came out of the research was like that there is a gap that needs to be bridged between the way we as the out-of-home industry view and talk about ourselves and what like buyers, like the rest of the advertising community sort of views us as or needs from us. And, there's a lot of different ways to sort of, create that bridge. But one of the things that I found in the research was just like coming back to our strengths, but also coming back to the fact that we as an industry, like if you ask somebody from Lamar or you ask somebody from Clear Channel, like we sort of all say the same thing, but we don't say it the same way. And that fragmentation, I actually think, causes a lot of confusion.
Tons of confusion.
And like doesn't do us any good. So I was like, what are we all trying to say at the root? And then like, let's just say it in one way that we could all say it together. And, the other thing that's really interesting in all of this too, little side fact on how we got to the human medium too, is that, I am a person that I'm like obsessed with like letters and like, acronyms and things like that. So I was thinking like OOH because, like people feel strongly about OOH. But listen, we as an industry, like we decided to call ourselves that, like we got to lean in, you know? And I, the O, there were so many fun things that we played with like, we put the O in omni-channel, like you can just like have fun. And then I was like, H, oh my God, what a weird letter. What the fuck is H? And then I was like, oh my God, H is humans. Like it just like, and I was like, oh my God, like it's kind of like been there, like staring us in the face the whole time. That like all of these things, like all the things that we do are sort of like wrapped up in this like acronym. Instead of like making something new or changing it, let's just like be honest about who we are and play to our strengths. Like this is a people powered industry. Awesome. Lean into it. This is an industry that, has the ability to connect people and let people have a shared experience like nobody else can, And I think we do live in this like AI centric world where there's a lot of positives to AI, and I too love my chat, but like there's also a lot of like scary elements about AI, and people like don't want to be algorithmically driven. People want to exist in the real world they are so tired of being like hunkered down,
Right.
doom scrolling. And by the way, I'm the number one doom scroller.
Are
like
you?
I do, like, because
Do you want to know a little trick?
Yeah,
like,
tell me.
Turn your screen to gray screen.
Okay.
I asked my staff to do this, and a few of them like almost quit and killed me. But change your screen to gray screen, and it becomes so boring that when you're scrolling, all you see is black and white, everything.
Oh, obsessed.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I didn't come up with
because we
that,
live
but
in a
it's-
world of color.
Yeah,
like people want to be like vibrant and surrounded by messages that like resonate with them and experience new things. And it's like, yeah, out of home is tried and true. Like it is going to exist, you know, till the end of time, no matter what shiny new object comes up.
And it's so brilliant too, because I wish I could take my out of home hat off and like drive and walk and experience out of home, because I want to feel like, what is it like? Because you and I are like, oh, what is that? Who is that? Who bought that?
And I'm just like, oh, they're big spend. Got to get them into our brand council.
Yeah, exactly. But like, what does the consumer feel like? And when you talk to everyday consumers, it's like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I work in the out of home industry. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
What does out of home mean? Like, well, and then you find yourself like, oh, this is going to be a ridiculous conversation. So when the human side of it came out of it, it was like, well, we're the human medium.
Yeah.
And that just seems...
Well, I also think like today's consumers are really smart.
Super.
And also everybody today is sort of like wanting to be an entrepreneur. So whether they're a content creator online or they start their own business, they're way more aware of marketing, I find, than they ever have been. So they sort of understand like, oh, like how could I build a business? And I do think there is a conception, or I would say misconception, about out of home being, there's a high barrier to entry, difficult, but I do think that like we as consumers are much more marketing focused than we've ever have been before. Right. And I do think that that's a tremendous opportunity for out of home, just because, with all the issues that we talked about from a digital perspective, I think it's a lot more daunting to like go and make a TV ad than it is to just like, you could literally go into Canva and make something, you could play around and make something creative like instantly. Now, sure, with AI tools, you can do the same with video, but like not with the same ease.
Yeah. And it's so interesting in that, because the modern buyer has evolved. The modern consumer has evolved so to your point, all the way down to like the local boutique owner, all the way up to like the largest tech CPG brand that spends in the out of home space. It's how do I interact with the medium, and how do I make the ease of buying? So I feel like programmatic has significantly launched us into this like world of tech accessibility to buy medium, because when you launch a small business, if you and I were going to start a company, the first thing we would probably do is like, all right, let's start an Instagram page. Let's start a TikTok page. Right. And if we're in the business world, maybe a LinkedIn page. That's all barrier to entry, super low, super easy. And then now with out of home, having that opportunity, touch on that a bit, why the repositioning was so important, because the way the evolution of out of home, not just programmatic, I like to say automation and accessibility to inventory, like that used to be the biggest thing. Like if you joined the OAAA 15 years ago, it was like, we're not going to show you our available inventory. Right. Now it's like, well, everything else you do as a consumer, you buy. Your flight here, you probably booked on delta.com, you probably booked bonvoy.com. So why not give that same accessibility to the consumers? So touch on that, like why the repositioning and why the branding side is so important.
The other part of it too is that, when I first joined OAAA, I spent a lot of time just like talking to a lot of members. And what I realized is your sort of like 3 or 4 like core value proposition points actually probably differ from other out-of-home companies, because there is like 15,000 different core value propositions, And again, I think that leads to, that fragmentation leads to confusion. And so like a lot of it was about boiling it down to the here and now of like, what are like the 5 most important attributes of out-of-home that anybody in the industry can go and utilize in any sales meeting that they have, on any panel that they're on, in any press interview that they do. And so I think like it was really about distilling down like what makes the medium so special, because there really are like there's a million reasons. And if I asked 15 different people standing in front of me like what their top 3 to 5 reasons were, I would have 15 times 5 different answers. And so that I think was also causing a little bit of a frustration among the rest of the advertising community, because we were not operating as a unified force and a unified industry. And I think that cohesion, like we will move farther together.
Sure.
And I think you're sort of already starting to see that, you know, because I do think that there's been a lot more collaboration within the industry. I think that the automation piece is a big piece of that. I think also we as an industry recognize that like the issues in other media channels are like, the opportunity is ours for the taking. Like anybody I interview, whether they're coming to work at the OAAA or have a conversation with, like when people are like, why did you take this job or whatever? I'm always just like, to be in an environment where there's so much opportunity that like if you lose, like it's on you.
Yeah.
You know, like how exciting.
Yeah.
And I really do feel that way about my job every day.
Yeah. I wrote them down because I was blown away by them, the core medium, because to your point, if you asked all these different billboard companies, A, B, C, D, they fall into those 5 different buckets. They're just saying them different. So how do we make it simplistic? Because I'm thinking of if you and I are starting our business in billboard company A, B, and C, and we'll just pretend they're roadside billboards for the example, and they came and pitched, they were like, oh yeah, but billboard company A can't do this, but billboard company we can. But in our mindset, you're like, bro, it's a billboard on the fucking side of the road. Like, why are you making this so complex?
Yeah.
And I feel like going back to the brand repositioning and the past repositionings, it's really been so complex. It was like, how do we fit into the digital world? How do we fit into this world of AI? How do we fit in? And it kind of takes a step back and it's like, it's a blank canvas.
Yeah.
And it's different sizes and mediums, but I'm going to rattle them off just for our listeners, but like, do you know them?
I know most of them.
All right. Uniquely creative, deeply relevant,
Powerfully amplified, intelligently connected, authentically human.
There we go.
Yeah.
And those are just the 5 buckets that just everything falls into. So if someone's like, oh, we're innovative and we're programmatically enabled, you're like, okay, perfect. You fall into authentically and, you know,
intelligently connected. Yeah.
So,
and you know what? I have to say, like, it's not, these are not revolutionary by any means, you know? And I think it was really just about like putting pen to paper. Like what I really wanted to make sure that we did as the association was put pen to paper on like any salesperson, any operator, like anybody in the industry that just needs like almost like a little cheat sheet of like how best to talk about the industry. Like, here you go. And like, again, that goes back to being helpful. Like, how can we help you do your jobs better? I mean, obviously that is, you know, an essential component of the OAAA. But I do think that like, you know, we talk a lot about that from whether it's like creative best practices or, you know, any of the industry initiatives we do as well. But it was sort of that top layer that was just sort of missing that I think almost created space for misalignment.
Yeah. And earlier today, one of the questions was brought up when you were speaking, and I kind of jumped in as well. You heard it from one of our reps. She was kind of like, well, I'm on the transit airport side, and then we have to compete against our own internal billboard company within the company. And it was like, wait, take a step back. Think about just the only differentiator is where you are as a consumer in that mindset.
Yeah.
And where you are screen wise, size wise. Those are the only 2 complexities that exist. So I feel like for a long time, we try to fit in where we didn't fit in, where we lend a hand. You know, we are omni-channel, but we were like, okay, let's be more like omni. And it was like, no, we're our own authentic self. And I thought that your answer was brilliant on it. Was like, well, then that's a creative story.
Yeah.
And the messaging and the way that you tell the story, from the simplicity of like limited number of words because it's a roadside billboard to I'm going to be stuck in the subway for a 20-minute ride. You can have more text context, maybe a QR code. Like, touch on that a little bit deeper. Like, now you've just given the playbook, very simplistic. And now the mediums like Instagram that were so easy, it was like, well, you buy an Insta ad. Now those start to seem a little bit more complex, where it's like an out-of-home environment, location, audience.
Yeah.
Yes, I want 1, 2, and 7.
Yeah. I was on a panel in New York last week and we were talking a lot about this, but I think people have sort of like lost the art of a good call to action. It's like, you know, we're putting out these ads, whatever channel you're putting it out on, but it's like, what are you even expecting the consumer response to be?
Right.
You know, and a lot of times people are just like, did it work? Well, it's like, what did you even want it to do? So I do think being really mindful of the consumer journey and having them do what you want them to do in the different environments that they're in is one component of it. I think the other thing, which, you know, is just our great OAAA research, but like people are traveling more than they ever have been. Yep. You know, like there is like commuting is sort of different around, maybe people are in like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday instead of Monday and Friday. You sort of have to think about the world differently. Sure. And I do think, you know, we obviously in that session this morning talked a little bit about the pandemic, and I know people like don't want to talk about it. Like nobody wants to relive it. But there are certain things that came out of the pandemic where like our world is fundamentally different, and you now have to sort of adopt your messaging and the way that you show up in the real world, the way that you show up honestly anywhere, to like how people now want to live their lives and how they are. And I think if you sort of think about the way that people are moving through their everyday life and meeting them at that moment where they're going to be really receptive to a message and respond in the way that you want them to, like you're going to see a lot of success.
And I didn't want to misquote any of these, but out of home turns everyday spaces into places where stories come to life.
Yeah.
That's extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Because if you're standing in front of me, large brand, small brand, that's all I want to do.
Do you know what my favorite part of the repositioning is?
Tell me.
It's where we say in the brand manifesto that out of home is where ideas meet the people they were made for.
Perfect.
I just like, when we nailed that, I was like, yes.
Yeah. And if you're someone at BBDO, a creative agency, and you're doing work for Nike, you're like, yes, give me that medium.
Yeah, because it goes back to like the root, the creative, the core, that central idea.
Right.
And I do think that like with a lot of these other media channels, we have lost our way a little bit on that, you know, and not because like it doesn't work other ways, but I do think the power of the creative, you know, again, not to harp on it, but like that's why people care so much about those Super Bowl ads. 100%. It's like that's like a one time of year where people are like putting all they got, and it's like, but why can't we like give all we got like a couple times a year? Every time. Every time.
But I think with this, and not to brag about the repositioning of the OAAA, but I think that talking to creative agencies more, talking to the people that are designing the creative, talking to the brands direct about what the medium truly is capable of. I think that kind of takes, you know, you and I, we're going to geek out about University of Duke's out of home library, but the first ad ever.
We're going to the archives.
But the first one ever was for the circus, for Barnum and Bailey. And it was, they could have easily just said, especially in the simplistic times, it could have said circus in town. But no, they did this beautiful creative with the tigers jumping, with the elephants roaring, with the train itself. And it was like, let's get back to that. So how do we inspire, you know, because it's so easy to just click and upload creative and buy an ad.
Yeah.
But to your point, and, you know, Lamar bought Colossal Media. Shout out to Kelly, the president there, who's the best. You know, she screams from the rooftops, like, you literally have a wallscape that not only do you get to see this beautiful masterpiece that finishes, but you get to watch it come to life every day. You get to guess about what it is. Like, how inspiring is that from a creative side of things? But it's like, all right, we got to bring the buyers over too. Like, don't you want to, like you and I do with our kids, don't you want to drive around? Like, I get so fired up. There was one the other day running, and I was like, Dad sold through that campaign. And my kids were like, cool. What? Yeah. Like, how do we get passionate about that enough to say, hey, your creative sucks, brand that I'm representing. Let's redo this.
Yeah. I actually think it goes back to the whole notion of us being a human medium, because it is literally all about relationships. And, you know, like from an OAAA perspective, like we spend a lot of time deeply engaging with brands and agencies. And like, I recently met at one of our salon dinners, a girl who works at L'Oreal. She works on Essie. And she's like my new best friend. Like, I love her, Zoe.
I heard she's great.
If you watch this, Zoe, I love you. And they're just doing such cool stuff. And, you know, she admitted, she was just like, we don't do a lot of out of home. She's like, I don't really know why. You know, and a lot of times it's not for lack of want.
Right.
It's sort of the circumstance. It's a strategy that was set forth by somebody else. It's this is the way we've always done things thing. And, you know, it's really on us as an industry to like break through with those relationships and like sort of and change the cycle, because, you know, we talked a lot about it this morning too, but, you know, the tenure of a CMO, like the CMO comes in, they probably bring in a new agency partner. The agency partner is bringing in new innovative ideas. And I'm not like saying that the ideas aren't innovative. I'm just saying that like a lot of times, like people aren't correlating like out of home with innovation. And, you know, that sort of runs its course. New CMO, new agency, new innovative ideas. And like all it's to say is like, okay, well, what happened to your out of home strategy in the process? And I do think like that's where we as an industry, like leveraging the relationships that we have and working really hard to just like tout the power of our medium and having the platforms we do, like the conference and the OBs and all the different industry events that we show up at, is just really important to just like, you know, when you've been around for so long, you still have to remind people why you're here. And like that is essentially what we're really trying to do.
Yeah. And my favorite thing is every one of those events that you rattled off, and you guys do a phenomenal job of all the different conferences, even the salons and whatnot. Every time that I go to these dinners, or I'll, you know, leave Cannes with a client and we talk about out of home there, it's this, you get to see this like peak of curiosity.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, so you're a L'Oreal woman, who, by the way, she is phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
And the hope is that one little spark has her going back to her team and saying, hey, show me the brief again. Why was out of home not a part of it? Wait, here's a gap. You know, I heard about the human medium. Why didn't this Instagram ad correlate over here to an out of home ad? And so you touched on it earlier, like why you came to the OAAA when you launched the repositioning. There's such a massive amount of opportunity.
Yeah.
Like what, you know, you guys serve the vendors, the Lamars, the Clears, all the way down to the smallest platforms. Where do you think, and what do we need to do better now that this repositioning is out? What can we do to continue to tell that story and to have that spark become, you know, paint to paper and go live?
Yeah, you know what? I think that's such a really interesting question. And I actually think everybody is doing, like, I can say in the 2 years that I've been here, I have seen so many of our members do so much of a better job, like touting the things that they're doing.
Yep.
And I do think that, like, you know, sometimes like being braggadocious is like the way to go.
Yep.
And it's annoying and it's uncomfortable, but like nobody is going to advocate for you except for you. And I do think as an industry, we don't do enough of that. Because it is like really uncomfortable, you know, but I do think it's really important. And it's like, show off that big campaign, show off the creativity, show off the case study. Like you have to be sort of loud and vocal about the things that you're doing. And I do think as an industry, we can do a lot more of that. You know, you got to get in front of the right people, show up to the events, do all of the things that, you know, are sometimes like, oh, do we really have to do this? But like, you know, you kind of do. To your exact point of like, when you're starting a business, what are you going to do? You're going to start an Instagram and maybe an X or a Facebook, a TikTok, and get on LinkedIn if it's because those are comms channels. And I think as an industry, we can focus even more on our communication strategy to really better amplify the great work that we're doing. I think the other thing too, we had been talking a little bit about this morning, but like there are sort of these green shoots and like amazing opportunities within the broader out of home ecosystem that like I don't know if the rest of the industry recognizes as out of home, but like so squarely is like experiential. And going back to Zoe, for example, like she does a ton of experiential. And so like I said to her, I'm like, you are doing out of home, you know, like, oh, maybe you're not doing like a billboard per se, but you're doing out of home. And I think like sort of changing people's mindset around like what out of home encompasses. And, you know, a lot of brands are spending on experiential right now. Like that's out of home, like, you know, bring it into the fold. And we as the OAAA need to talk about that. We as an industry need to show that off. I think we got to show off more, really. Agreed. And I think like that also goes back to the creative piece too, because there is so much good creative to show off. Yeah.
And we have the medium. And it's
to do it.
Yeah, and the irony of it is these other platforms that you just rattled off, they're using, like X just rolled out this phenomenal out-of-home campaign. TikTok is one of the largest spenders in the space. They're touting their platform.
AI. Yeah.
ChatGPT has some of the coolest campaigns that I've ever seen, not only from an out-of-home perspective, but I've also seen now the billboards, the wallscapes that end up on chat, they end up on X and Instagram. So stop being so stressful about like, I go back to the point of like, we try to be the kid at prom that's like sat in the corner. And then we were like, well, how do we look, act, and dress like the cool kids? It's like, no. The party's over here.
Yeah.
Like, so let's start acting.
Oh, and by the way, this industry is a good time. Like this is a real party going on over here, you know? People don't know, you know? Yeah. Small but mighty, let me tell you. Yeah.
I'm excited about the repositioning, but let's geek out a bit for the last couple of minutes here. So there also is that I think about you and your career, your early days when you were at Yahoo and you were there, AOL, and you felt like, oh, I belong here.
Yeah.
You're 2 years in. I always see it when you're on stage or you're backstage. You and I shared a stage at the 4As earlier this year. Like I love people like you that are just so excited about it because again, 20 years in the space.
100%. You a little jaded, Ian?
Yeah. Well, because I get frustrated, right? I'm like, guys, come on. Like to your point, like we're a good time. Come see us. But I love to see new, innovative, young faces that are in the space, but aren't here just to like prove out something. Like you truly are passionate about it. I see it on your face every time you speak. We have the upcoming conference that I want you to touch on a tad as well. But like, do you feel like this was the same way you felt when you were an intern in college at AOL?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I do always tell people like this is the best job I've ever had.
I love that.
And I always say, and no shade to Tim Armstrong, I love him, but like this is the best job I've ever had. And I think a lot of it is because like sometimes when you're in the thick of the day to day, and I can imagine for you like 20 years, like think about where you are now versus where you were 20 years ago. And I think about where I am now versus where I was 2 years ago when we started. I think about this year's conference, which is literally just going to be the biggest. It is the biggest gathering of the out-of-home industry like in the world. But at the same time, like last year we had a 30% non-out-of-home audience at the conference.
It's huge.
People like don't realize that. And by the way, the goal is to not only like maintain that, but exceed it. So like seeing the reaction to the conference, like all of the people that we're reaching out to that want to like come and speak and like be a part of the industry, like it's tremendous. So like I see in the last 2 years, like people reacting to like the feelings that I'm already having about the industry. So that is also what keeps me going every single day. And I will say also, when I started my career at AOL and I spent a lot of time on the B2B marketing side, working with a lot of trade associations, like I never thought I would be like in my 30s working at a trade association. Like I just didn't foresee that for myself. And I have to say like the work that we do, there is so much that goes on every single day behind the scenes. There are so many launches, there's so many campaigns, there's so many initiatives, there's so much great research, so many events. It's like, it's never ending excitement because there's just always something to do. And it's not stale and it's not stagnant. It's just like, what could we be doing better to grow the industry? And you see a direct correlation between the work that you're doing, the impact it has on members and their business, and like, what could be better than that? So I'm really passionate about like seeing like proof of performance, like, and I do feel like in the 2 years that I've been here, that there has been sort of, continued trajectory and excitement, but also I see the way people react to me being in my job, the people that answer the phone, the people that want to get involved. So that piece is really exciting too.
And it's got to be interesting. It's a challenge, right? You're dealing with like Lamar, a 128-year-old company, but you're dealing with all the way long tail of small independent owners that have owned the family generational, have been passed along. And I feel like early on, mid-tier of my time and the initiatives that were rolled out and the focus is you didn't get buy-in from everyone. And I feel like now more than ever, you have full buy-in from everyone. Say everyone. 98% of the people will just be generous. That are truly like, yes, this is the best time as an industry because it feels like no one's left behind from a technology perspective, from hey, are you thinking about me? And I think that's interesting with the repositioning is it literally talks to everyone. It's not who has the biggest tech budgets and can accomplish all these things. It's like, no, it's a human medium. And I don't care if you're in Meridian, Mississippi or El Paso, Texas, this correlates to you as well. Oh,
100%. I mean, by the way, I love to tell people that the OAAA is a 135-year-old company. It's like my favorite thing.
It just feels awesome.
It's like, okay, awesome. Number one, history major coming through. I mean, I think the other thing too is that it's really easy to like turn it on when you're winning. And we are really winning as an industry right now. I do think that everybody sees the opportunity that's in front of us and recognizes that like if we do not grasp this opportunity, like it's ours to lose.
It's ours to lose.
And so I think that's what allows everybody to sort of, like when you're down, it's a blame game. It's like, oh, you didn't do this. I mean, but like we're on the up and up. So like it's so easy to just all get on board. And I think like that's where I say I'm really glad I wasn't here during the pandemic.
Do you last couple of minutes, do you want to plug the conference coming up in Dallas?
I would love to plug our conference coming up in Dallas.
Maybe who the guest speakers are.
Yes. Well, we already have a great lineup. We're not even fully launched yet in terms of everybody that's going to be there, but we do have John Morgan joining us of Morgan & Morgan fame. I don't think there's anybody's face that is on more signs across America. He is the #1 out-of-home advocate, and we're super excited about him coming. He has a lot of great stories and a lot of great business insight, and he's really excited about the opportunity, and we're really excited to have him. We also have Emma Greed. Emma is serial entrepreneur. She is the co-founder of Skims and Good American. She also has a podcast and a new book coming out. She's just an incredible marketer, brand builder, businesswoman. She's also a guest shark on Shark Tank. So like she just is an incredible, like so excited to come to the conference, loves the medium. It's really exciting working with these people's teams and like how excited they are about our event. Ross Riley from Lamar will be joining us.
President of Out of Home, my boss.
Ian Grotti, Chief Creative Officer, Giant Spoon. We have the Dallas Cowboys, Meredith Counts, who is their SVP of Brand and Marketing, as well as a performance.
Wait, so are the Dallas Cowboys going to perform?
Yes, a performance from the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Oh.
Yeah, no, just, and that's the thing. It's like,
what a great reality show too. Side note.
So great, right? We have Rashad Tabakawala, who is just an amazing industry legend. My goal with the conference as somebody that has been to probably over 100 plus industry conferences is like, how do we make sure that this event becomes like a tentpole event on people's calendars, the way that CES is, or Cannes Lion, or Advertising Week. And like, that's going to take some time, but like we're doing it, and I think where the focus of some of these other events is on like technology or creativity, the focus of our event is on out of home and real life experiences, and, marketers and agencies are realizing the value of that more and more and more every day, and they want to come, they want to get involved, they want to speak, they want to learn more. And I'm really excited about this year's conference, not just because it's in Dallas that it's going to be like the biggest yet, but it really is going to be the biggest, best yet.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
And look, so as we wrap here, I love that we're the human medium and we're
in
face to face, we're in person,
Yay.
which makes me feel so good.
I need to schedule my next trip to Baton Rouge because this has been fantastic.
Yeah,
we should give a plug for Baton Rouge because
shout out to the city.
Shout out to the city. I have never been here before. And why would I have? I never had a reason. But honestly, I do think everybody should come. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. The capital, obviously LSU, and then most importantly, Lamar's headquarters is here. And
most important.
Beautiful building that you got to tour earlier today.
Beautiful building.
Yeah.
Somebody was saying it's like the Google of the out-of-home world in terms of offices. So that's just huge. What other people say. I didn't say that.
Yeah. Well, look, as we wrap here, I'm beyond excited to watch your journey. You've gotten past the CMO 18 months of being here, so that mark's already checked. And then someone earlier said, seems like it's true. I'm not going to lie. I thought I was going to be in this space for 3 to 4 years, and then I was going to be gone. Here I am.
No, literally somebody said this to me, and I think about it every single day.
So I hope you're bought in. But once you reach year 2, you don't ever leave this space.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's infectious, it's authentic, but most importantly, the time that we're in, it's constantly evolving, innovating, and changing. And we're the only medium that hasn't had to like pivot and change. I think about newspaper, think about radio, all of TV, all of that's had to change. And here we are just,
But don't you think it's so cool that so many people in this industry have worked here for decades?
Yeah.
Like it really is a testament to what we do.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to the day where I can say that I've been in this industry for decades.
And I think that's the flip side when I dive deep into, and I help contribute to the human element piece, and I'm going to give my story. But I think it's also the twist, because you talk about it. We're a relationship business.
Yeah.
But the human element is also the thousands of people that have worked in this industry for so many decades and years, and they continue to show up every day at work. That's a human element too.
Yeah.
That
the physicality of like the
signs,
and like maintaining the signs and all of the things that go into just, existing in our space is all people power.
Yeah. So one of the questions, if I could add, that as we contributed, a handful of us contributed to the human medium.
Yeah.
One of the questions that you guys had was, if you recall, it was, okay, if there was a story to be told about out of home and it became a video and a commercial and like a reel, who should tell the story of out of home? And immediately, my answer, but immediately, guys, I said, Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Like I could just envision him driving like his Cadillac that he loves and just driving down the highway, just like in his cowboy boots and in his, pearl button up corduroy shirt, and just like in his Matthew McConaughey voice, just straight up telling the story about billboards, how they've always been here. They've always told the story, and they've always been authentically human.
Yeah.
So if we ever get that budget, I'll throw in a couple
the
of
next
dollars.
Industry campaign. By the way, the answers to that question
they're
were
wild.
fantastic.
Can you share a few as we wrap here?
Esther Raphael saying
shout out
Alex
to you,
Earl.
Esther. She said, of course she did. Self-fulfilling.
We love you, Esther. No,
Yeah.
it was also because she had just been on that big
That's
frame
right.
denim billboard in
Yes.
New York. So
Yeah.
it was like top of mind.
Yeah.
I think Matthew McConaughey was actually an answer like a couple of times.
Perfect.
You know, just somebody that's like so beloved and universal because like that is what our industry is.
Yeah.
It's like universal and beloved, you know? That was a good answer.
Good.
But that was a hilarious question.
Oh, yeah. I was like, wait, are y'all serious? Because like I actually have been dreaming about this moment for years. So if anybody's got a connection with Matthew McConaughey, you know, let me know.
Call Ian.
Yeah, give me a shout. Thank you
Awesome.
for everything.
Thank you for having
You're an
me.
amazing woman. You're a brilliant mom. And most importantly, we as an industry are so blessed to
thank
have
you.
you to kind of help guide us.
So nice of you to
Yeah.
say thank
and
you.
look, we're a fun time.
You
Come
are a
visit
fun
us.
time.
Come to
People
Dallas.
need to know that. This
Yeah.
industry is so fun.
It's fun. Come to Dallas.
Yeah.
Come figure this
Come
out.
to Dallas, May 11th to 13th.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Digital and Dirt. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media for the latest updates and stay tuned for our next episode.